everyone, my name is Chantel and I'm a member of the Elstree base here in the UK. And today I am here with the wonderful Catherine Tabor. Hey, hey. So for anyone who may not know, can you tell people what you've done so far in Star Wars?
I've done a lot in Star Wars. My very first voiceover job ever was actually in a video game called Knights of the Old Republic, where I played a character named Mission Veo. And I played Leia in several other iterations of things, but mostly I'm known for playing Padme Amidala in Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
And I believe you were a Star Wars fan before you started actually doing work in the universe. Is that right?
It's true. And I actually think that I attribute some of that just love of Star Wars and understanding of the universe to helping me get the jobs in the first place. And we kind of used to joke that I was the biggest Star Wars fan on the cast of Clone Wars and then Rebels. But then Sam came in, Sam Witwer, and now I'm just like put to shame.
And I usually like to ask people, what was your very first experience within Star Wars?
So this is always a funny question for me because I do not have some great story. I always want to use D. Bradley Baker's story where he played a Jawa at a local movie theater. I don't even remember because I don't remember a time without Star Wars. It's sort of like air. So I feel like it was just always there, honestly. And again, I think that's just part of like why I've been so blessed to work in this universe, because it's just part of my world and always has been.
Yeah, excellent. And so the obligatory question, there's a global pandemic on. How are you doing?
Actually, it's been good for me. It's changed what we do industry-wise, voiceover-wise. The on-camera stuff shut down for a while and is starting to pick back up a little bit, which is good. And then with voiceover, people just had to adjust. And in some ways, it's been great because I already had a studio, but certain clients still wanted you to come in, and now it's become like, well, you can just work from home. And my dog really loves that.
What kind of gear do you have at home? Like, are you set up in a little tiny corner? Are you in your closet? Are you soundproofed?
Yeah, I have a designated studio. It's really small, but it's a designated studio. And so it's sound treated and all of that. And I can close the door, and mostly the world is blocked out. So still occasionally those low frequencies come in, but otherwise, yeah, so I already had that, and I had just built it fairly recently. So when it happened and people were like, who has a home studio? I was just like, I do. So.
I mean, tech stuff wise, because I love using bits and pieces, and I'm a musician myself. What kind of like microphone setup are you using? Any particular programs that make things easier?
I have a Bluebird SL microphone, and as far as believe it or not, my favorite program to record myself in is actually GarageBand. I occasionally have to use more difficult ones, but a lot of times I have an engineer that I'm working with. And I would say that was one of the hardest parts, was that you had to take on aspects of a job that weren't yours. And I really like being an actress. I'm one of those people that I just like being an actress. I don't really want to do everything else. Yeah. So I like having an engineer, and I like having a director and all of those things. And the second job that I did out of my home studio that was sort of a, significant job was actually the audiobook Queen's Peril. And that was a little scary because it's just a lot. And if you don't hit record or whatever, so I have this process now of saying, I am recording, because it only happened once, and it wasn't on Queen's Peril, where I read for like just a few minutes and I was like, oh, I might want to record this.
Yeah, but, I mean, speaking of process, like, is there a specific ritual or a way that you either psych yourself up or get prepped or make sure you don't miss anything before recording?
I get my stuff that I'm going to be reading onto my iPad, which is not, the computer that I'm actually working off of. I get that set up on its little stand. I get my water. I usually have some kind of a spray that helps keep your mouth from getting dry. And then probably most importantly, I have to have lip gloss somewhere around. Otherwise I will panic. And so I just get that stuff ready. And then usually I'll say a little prayer or something if I remember and I'm not running late, and then it's off to the races. I'm really used to it now. And like I said, it was a blessing to have the studio, because I know so many people who were scrambling with, you know, with closets and whatnot. And I'm not actually in my studio right now. I'm actually in my office. That's why all the Alice in Wonderland stuff, because my studio for light is not as good as some other places, because it's just kind of like creepy overhead. I have another room where I audition for on camera stuff, and that has a full camera setup and you know, a backdrop and all of that. But again, it's more like it looks like you're auditioning. So
I think, as you mentioned, your first break into video games and Star Wars in general was with your voice work for Knights of the Old Republic. So how'd you land the gig? That's everybody's dream job, right?
I had no idea what I was getting into. It was literally my second audition. I mean, I was so new and I just had no idea. And my agent said, you know, they've been having a hard time casting this role, which I didn't even know what that meant. But then, you know, I booked it, and then I went in and got to meet the amazing Dara O'Farrell, who was the director. And I suddenly, you know, realized that it was a lot bigger than I thought. And, you know, they hand me this enormous script, literally the kind that you're like, oh, okay. And it was just super exciting, but it was being thrown into the fire. And, you know, like a little bit into the job, I was able to tell Dara that it was my first job, but at first my agent was like, yeah, maybe don't say it's your first job ever. So, but he's hired me many times since, and we're friends. And so I think it worked out well.
Sometimes not knowing what you don't know can be helpful.
I say a lot of times in those situations, as long as you don't act like you know what you don't know. That's a whole nother problem.
Totally cool. Totally cool. So we are charity fundraising for UNICEF today,
yes,
as a Rebel-a-thon, but you've also done some charity work yourself. I believe it was Games for Soldiers. Is that still up and running?
It's still up. It doesn't run at the same capacity that it was when we had a lot more soldiers deployed over in the Middle East. So it runs now more on requests specifically of people who contact me. And at the time, it was really hard for soldiers over there to get stuff. It's become a lot easier. And so now if I get specific requests, then I fill those and I get those sent out. But what ended up happening towards, you know, the end of when it was really busy and I was doing like a lot of units a month, I started having people donate games, but they were all donating their very old games. And I was literally getting like, you know, games on like discs, like
computer discs?
I think like floppy disks type thing, like really, really. And I was like, I don't think anyone can use this, but so it became more of now just if someone contacts me, and then a lot of times if they have a specific request of a specific game, then I can fill that. And sometimes that also facilitates the company then giving me extra, which is good.
Cool. Any specific type that was a favorite, like genre?
You know, strangely, the sort of first-person shooter games were, and sports games. So sometimes I would get like huge donations of like kids games, like really, really kids games. And I was like, I'm not sure what to do with these. Because it's, you know, it's guys and girls, you know, in their, you know, early 20s, you know, on up, and they like exactly the same things they like here. So
yeah, I was gonna say probably not into playing Lion King for Super Nintendo anymore.
You never know. I would always send stuff, and you know, I would get a lot of Magic the Gathering decks and stuff, and those were a big hit as well. So, you know, at that point, when there were so many people deployed, they did any entertainment, and a lot of times too, around the holidays, we try to do cards from, you know, if I was talking to a kid at a particular school and was like, hey, do you want to get your class to write letters? It was stuff like that too. That is really, sometimes it's really just the thought that counts, I think.
Yeah, and you've been in action adventure in Force Unleashed as Leia this time around, though. So you've done both mother and daughter. Yes. And I imagine getting just the perfect kinds of sounds is probably its own voiceover work challenge. Like, how do you do it?
I think what's funny for me is to go back to Dara. So again, I was so new, I had no idea. And I think that, you know, when we were doing Knights of the Old Republic, Dara was the one who was like, just do it like this, you know, and do
Yeah.
this and do this. And then so after that, I was just able to like, it was just part of my repertoire. And now that part's super easy. It is interesting. You'll see it sometimes, occasionally be working together with other people, and you'll see someone that it's their first time doing that. And they're kind of like, do what, but
Yeah.
if you've been doing it, or people work in games and it's like, now you're dying by fire, but you're rolling down a hill and then you hit a puddle of water, and then and there's some people who are just so good at it. Like it really would be a funny skit actually to just watch some of these really just amazing game actors just be able to vocalize that with no break, because that's basically what happens. So
Yeah, it's hilarious. So your big role in Star Wars, Padme, woo! And you and Matt Lanter are the reasons I really started loving Padme and Anakin's relationship. There was so much in the movies that couldn't necessarily get fleshed out, and we got to spend a lot more time with them in Clone Wars. So, what was it like really being the person that spent the time with her, taking it from puppy love and bringing it to a more turbulent and much more adult kind of relationship?
Well, it was a huge honor, and I was already such a fan of her as a character. I love the character of Padme. She, to me, symbolizes just so much that is important to me. So to get to play her was amazing. And then to get to play her with Matt, who is not only super easy on the eyes, but is just a really great actor and really great person. So you had someone else who really cared too. And then to add Dave Filoni into that mix, who took all of it very seriously and said from the beginning that he wanted to show their relationship as a real relationship,
Yeah.
where they really loved each other, but they also had this, real issues, real differences, real places where, there was tension. And so it was really cool, and I'm really proud of the work that we did. And thank you so much, because a lot of people do say that to us, and it means a lot. Because again, we cared about these characters and about their relationship. So it was great. And anytime now where we get to do any more of that, occasionally things pop up like Forces of Destiny, and we get to have those little moments, and it's just it'll forever be one of my favorite things and one of my favorite relationships too.
Yeah, I mean, it really made Anakin just pop and come to life and make it so much more tragic in context with everything.
So
It
true.
also shows his downfall so
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So in regards to that, I especially loved in season 6 that episode where Padme teams up with Clovis, and Anakin didn't want her to go, and eventually Anakin walks in on Clovis trying to forcibly kiss Padme after she's been pushing him away and telling him no, and dealing with the borderline harassment, and Anakin loses it, flips out, almost kills him in jealousy. It's such a real scene and relatable in the fact that there are a lot of people have dealt with jealous relationships and trust issues, and you chose that clip for your website sizzle reel. I figured I'd ask you, and I'm so glad you did, because it was the one that I would gravitated to. And so why is that one of your chosen features?
Because for me, that scene, it didn't matter that it was animated. It stood on its own, like as a really great scene from film, basically, and I loved it. And when we were doing that episode, it was actually kind of upsetting. And it was interesting because had I not known where things were going, I would have been really upset, like, oh my gosh, is this the end? And I felt for both of them, both characters, so much. She knows that she would not betray Anakin, and that she's, doing things for what she believes is good reasons. But he really feels, like he's walked in on something. And again, that's just so real. Like this idea that our perceptions and the information that we might have may not be the whole story. And yet as humans, it's so hard to come from that place. And yeah, I mean, Matt just does such a good job in that, and the animation's beautiful. So when I wanted to take something of my work from the show that I felt like, showed my acting, there's a couple of scenes, but that was definitely the one, even though it's sad and upsetting.
Yeah, it's sad, but again, I mean, so many women have been in that similar situation before, obviously not with
Right.
lightsabers,
Right.
emotionally, and had to deal with a distrustful spouse, and it hits
Right.
home. Take Padme not only in the series, but also into audiobook work as well with Queen's Shadow, Queen's Peril. And in audiobook, you're not just being the character, you have to do the narrator and all the other
Yes.
voices, including men's voices. Is
Yes.
that harder to do?
It is. I had the fortune of already having done a few audiobooks. It was just something I fell into several years ago. And it's funny because I always say it's my parents. It's the thing they're the most proud of because they're always like, I don't know how you could do that. You could be all those characters. So I had already done it. And it's interesting because occasionally someone will say like, oh, that person doesn't really sound like a man. And it's like, yes, you are right. And and it's like if you have a man narrating an audiobook with a deep voice and he has to do a female character, nor does he sound exactly like a real female. Not usually anyway. So I was already used to that. With the Star Wars books, for me, it was a really big deal to try to be authentic to that character if they already appeared in the universe, which gets really dicey compared to a regular audiobook. So
Yeah.
I was just trying to verify, who had what accent and what they sounded like. And I always do like a cast list when I'm doing an audiobook with little images of either an actual actor or a person. It could just be a random person that in my head that person looks like. So that helped a lot. And then also Kevin Thompson, who is the director of those books, has been doing it forever. And he is amazing and knows the characters so well. So like if you're doing a Yoda part and, he might be like, okay, a little more Yoda. And he knows what it needs to be. And he makes it a lot easier. I'll put it that way, but it's not, that job's not easy.
I would imagine not. Yeah. Not. Yeah. Is there any particular bit that was absolutely hilarious to record, like, trying to mimic the rest of your fellow cast members or anything else, like in Pursuit of Peace when you did the little snippet one?
Well, I think it was actually in Queen's Peril. Well, no, Pursuit of Peace was funny because there were several people. I felt like someone actually said I did a good Matt Lanter, so I was really appreciative of that. But the one that I was the most worried about was James Arnold Taylor.
Yep.
And it's funny, Matt and I are very good friends, but I just wasn't worried about it. And James is like one of my best friends. I literally was like, I texted him and I said, can you read this sentence? Because I was just like, it's strange to have your really good friend. You don't want it to be like you're making fun of them or doing some impersonation of them. And for some reason, his was going to be harder for me, even though I talked to him more than any of the rest of them. So that one was pretty funny, but I feel like it came out okay. I think the one that the producers and I always joke the most about though is my Palpatine, because I'm always just like, watch out anyone who's playing Palpatine, because clearly I'm coming for your job.
Yeah, exactly.
I sound exactly like Palpatine.
Totally. And then having been able to spend so much time with her and growing through both the shows and the audiobooks as she gets, fleshed out a bit more, what's one of her lessons from her life that, you want to take on board for yourself?
I actually think it's in EK's books that, like I said, I already love Padme. I love everything about her, but especially I love that she remains incredibly feminine, and it's, she likes pretty things. And because there was a time period where I felt like female characters had to be one or the other, and they were sort of either just being rescued and they were, pretty in a dress, or they were super tough.
Yeah.
And I've always contended that you really can be both. You can also be one or the other, and that's great and that's fine. But some people are both, and there's nothing wrong with liking dresses and still.
They'll put the woman with gravitas as a rather lower timbre kind of voice. And it was refreshing to see Padme still maintaining that higher register and the femininity that goes with it.
Thank you. And she's graceful and yet strong. But what I really got from the books that was even a new layer was just her bravery, and the "We Are Brave." and how she steps into so many things that we saw in the films. But if you read the books, you get a little bit of the backstory. She steps into things and moments that she's not prepared for, but it's sort of a, if not me, then who? And she does it with such grace. And so that's been something that's been a newer layer for me, to just say, you know, you're not always prepared for the big moments in your life. And maybe you think you're not, you know, ready, or you're not equipped. But if you do it with grace and courage, you know, hopefully it will turn out all right.
Yeah, and you get a lot of that reflected in Leia too, and I love how the books fleshed out that as well, and a lot of the similarities between mother and daughter, even though they never really knew each other.
I always think that, you know, Leia really is this great, perfect combination of Padme and then the Anakin that we see in Matt Lanter, just that impetuous and like, you know,
I'm gonna do it my way, and a bit stubborn, but always, you know, trying to do right, even if it's not necessarily always, you know,
occasionally
right.
putting their foot in their mouth because they haven't taken a moment to pause, which is a Padme thing. She's the pauser, or the you know, the like, I'm just gonna give this one moment before I do it.
Exactly, yeah. And then wrapping up the rest of the bits here, do you have any Star Wars gigs that are coming up that you can actually tell us about?
No, the stuff that I have coming out that I can talk about as of today is the new Loud House movie that's coming out this summer, which is very exciting for some crossover fans and then some other fans. That's the thing that we just got the okay to like talk about today.
Yeah, so. That's up on Wikipedia now as well too.
Yes,
so,
yes. The rest of it is like, you know, usually, I don't know.
Yeah, you got to keep it quiet until it actually shows up. And then if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you online?
My website is katherinetabor.com. I try to update there with some, you know, news and things that are happening. I'm a little behind right now. As far as social media, I have pages other places, but I'm really only at Instagram. I find the other ones divisive and mean, and I love photography and photos, so I love Instagram.
Yeah.
So that's where you'll see me posting.
Excellent. And can we get a little send off with a little Padme sample? Like how and why should people donate to support UNICEF today?
This is Senator Padme Amidala, and we must always take care of the young and the innocent in our galaxy. And here, UNICEF is doing a great job of that. So you can't go wrong by donating your time, your money, your effort towards UNICEF. And that's why we're here today.
So there you have it. It is Katherine Tabor. Thank you so much for your time. And
Thank
for
you.
Everybody who's watching from home, if you have been enjoying the broadcast, do like Padme told you and donate if you can. And may the force be with you.